Sony is a multi-billion-dollar company that is constantly making bad decisions, such as upping the price of the PS Plus subscription, neglecting to update their security measures, which led to them getting hacked, compromising their employees and their consumers' data, and now the CEO just got fired. How did it get to this point? How did the king of consoles plummet so quickly? Will their greed lead to Sony's inevitable downfall? To answer that, we need to go back to the beginning. In the mid-1990s, Sony, renowned for its consumer electronics like TVs, radios, and cell phones, took a bold step into the world of gaming. Inspired by the monumental success of gaming juggernauts Nintendo and Sega, Sony forged pivotal partnerships with developers like Namco and Konami, laying the foundation for a robust game library for their upcoming gaming console. This transition represented a significant shift for Sony, moving away from previous cooperative ventures with Nintendo and directing their focus towards harnessing the immense potential of CD-ROM storage technology. It was during this transformative phase that Sony Computer Entertainment Inc., or SCE, came into existence. This will later become Sony Interactive Entertainment. SCE, a global force in video games and digital entertainment, started operations under the banner of the Sony Group Corporation. Its primary mission revolves around fostering and managing the PlayStation brand, a central component within Sony's extensive portfolio.
That's why you gotta kill the shit, you going crazy.
The PlayStation made its grand entrance, debuting in Japan in December 1994, with the United States following suit in September 1995. The reception exceeded all projections, with avid gamers forming long queues outside stores, often leaving retailers struggling to meet the surging demand. A defining factor in the PlayStation's commercial triumph was its masterful marketing campaign and a price tag that undercut its primary rival, the Sega Saturn, by a substantial $100. The PlayStation was among the earliest consoles to unleash the potential of 3D visuals. It was one of the first CD-based consoles to achieve widespread global popularity. This set it apart from its top competitor, the Nintendo 64, which clung to cartridges. Although CDs brought slower loading times, they delivered an expansive 700 MB data capacity, dwarfing the maximum 64 MB storage seen in later Nintendo 64 games. The extensive data capacity empowered PlayStation developers to pack their games with an abundance of in-game content, audio tracks, voice acting, and an array of video material. The Nintendo 64, known as the Machine of the Year at the time, was slowly fading, and PlayStation was beginning to make its mark on the gaming community. As the sphere of influence expanded beyond Japan, Sony planted its roots in North America and Europe. In May 1995, Sony Computer Entertainment America, SCEA, was established in Foster City, California, followed by the formation of Sony Computer Entertainment Europe, SE, in Liverpool in July 1995. These international branches played a pivotal role in Sony's overarching strategy for research and development in video games and interactive entertainment. And this was just the beginning of greatness. The PlayStation 2 marked a substantial leap forward for Sony. The console was launched in 2000 and surpassed the original PlayStation in nearly every aspect. Sony embraced the multimedia experience by adding support for DVDs, making the PS2 one of the most affordable DVD players available at the time. In addition, one of the PS2's significant advantages was its backward compatibility with PS1 games, which meant players did not need to abandon their existing collection of older PlayStation games. This feature made the PS2 a favorite among a wide audience. Between the releases of the PS2 and PS3, Sony ventured into handheld gaming for the first time with the introduction of the PlayStation Portable, PSP, in 2004. Sony announced that the PSP base model would be launched in Japan on December 12th that year, for 19,800 Japanese yen, which was about 181 US dollars. On February 3, 2005, Sony announced that the PSP would be released in North America on March 24th in one configuration for $249. Some commentators expressed concern over the high price, which was almost $20 higher than the Japanese model and over $100 higher than the Nintendo DS. It also had a way lower battery life than the DS, and the memory cards were expensive, which made it difficult to store a lot of games on the device. Despite these concerns, the PSP's North American launch was a success. Flush with success following the PS1, PS2, and PSP, Sony exuded confidence when unveiling the PS3. However, one might argue it was more arrogance than confidence. This became apparent during their infamous E3 2006 press conference. At E3 2006, Sony dropped a bombshell by announcing a $499 price tag for the base 20GB variant of the PS3 and a staggering $599 for the 60GB model.
In North America, the PlayStation 3 will
The audience in
be available
attendance
at
audibly
retail
gasped
on November
at the
17th,
insane prices.
2006. The 20GB PlayStation 3 will retail for $499 US dollars and 549 Canadian dollars. And the 60GB PlayStation 3 for $599 US dollars, $659 Canadian.
Ken Kutaragi, often referred to as the PlayStation Godfather, doubled down on this decision in an interview with the Japanese media company Toyo Keizai. Ken Kutaragi stated, "Whether consumers think a product is expensive or cheap all depends on the balance between its appeal and price." He went on to say, "Our ideal for PS3 is for consumers to think to themselves, okay, I'll work more hours and buy it. We want people to feel that they want it no matter what." End quote. This marked Sony's first notable instance of corporate greed, and they showed no remorse for the complaining fans. Unfortunately for Sony, the initial year or so after the PS3's launch turned out to be disappointing, mainly due to the extremely high price and a somewhat limited selection of games. This was due to the PS3 presenting a significant challenge for game developers. The console was notoriously difficult to develop for, and developers had to invest a substantial amount of time figuring out how the system actually worked. During this period, a meme emerged known as PS3 has no games, a reflection of the absence of titles in the early days of the console. However, once the devs finally cracked the code, the results were magnificent. Following the PS3, Sony introduced the PlayStation Vita. Unfortunately, the PS Vita ended up being a significant commercial disappointment. It sold only around 16 million units, a far cry from its competition, the Nintendo 3DS, which managed to sell a staggering 75 million units. Despite its underwhelming sales, the PS Vita managed to garner a dedicated and passionate fan base. When Sony attempted to shut down the PS Vita's online storefront in 2021, there was a swift and passionate outcry from its loyal fans. In contrast, the PSP did not receive the same level of support and was shut down as planned. Then, the PS4 came onto the scene. Sony launched it at a competitive price point of $399, a significant improvement over the PS3's pricing debacle. The PS4 introduced several impressive features, such as the share button, which allowed players to easily capture and share videos directly from the console. Additionally, the PS4 outperformed its primary competitor, the Xbox One, with its impressive AMD graphics and faster RAM. The PS4 also stood as a developer-friendly console, allowing developers to start creating great games immediately. The extensive lineup of PlayStation exclusives dominated the gaming industry, enticing many players to purchase a PS4 solely to experience them. And it looked like Sony was on its way to becoming the king of the consoles. However, the PS4 did have its shortcomings, as it did not support backward compatibility, unlike its competition. This was weird because Sony followed in the footsteps of its competitor, Microsoft's Xbox, when it came to introducing a paid online subscription service known as PlayStation Plus. This move suggested that the issues that plagued Sony during the PS3 release were finally catching up to them, and they needed to generate additional revenue. Finally, the year 2020, known as a year of doom and gloom for many, witnessed the release of the highly anticipated PS5. Unfortunately for Sony, the world was grappling with a pandemic, leading to multiple supply chain issues. To compound the situation, there was an industry-wide chip shortage. Companies and consumers desperately needed chips that were in short supply. As if things could not get any worse, resellers entered the scene and employed bots to relentlessly scan websites and purchase PS5 units for resale at inflated prices. People were left queuing outside stores in freezing temperatures for days, hoping to secure a PS5. On the hardware front, the PS5 represented a significant step forward for console gamers. It featured an upgraded CPU and GPU, 16 GB of RAM, and the ability to deliver 4K gaming with ray tracing, finally allowing PlayStation to catch up in the PC master race. Sony also decided it was time to revive an old PS2 feature, backward compatibility. The PS5 could run a vast majority of PS4 games, a well-received decision since the console did not have many PS5 next-gen games available at launch. During this time, Sony was doing quite well due to the increased numbers of gamers on lockdown. Due to these factors, Sony's revenue from its PlayStation division increased by $6 billion. However, that wasn't enough for Sony. Sony introduced a new tier subscription service, offering additional features at an extra cost. This decision did not sit well with some consumers who felt they were being asked to pay more for features that should have been included in the standard offering. And just when you thought it wouldn't get worse for Sony, it did. Jim Ryan, who served as the head of PlayStation and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, just recently announced his departure. Ryan took the reins as president and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment in 2019 when he replaced John Cotera. Ryan started his long-standing career with Sony Europe in 1994, but over the last 2 years, Ryan has overseen a PlayStation shift toward games as a service, a popular industry term for video games, typically multiplayer, that can be monetized over extended periods. It's been an uncomfortable pivot for some of Sony's studios, which have spent the last decade building out teams of experienced developers to make big, cinematic adventure games that are played solo, such as God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn. He likely got this idea after seeing the success of Fortnite. This is why a lot of games are pivoting to multiplayer. One notable example is the new Last of Us multiplayer-only game, designed as a live service game that was free to play. This game perfectly matches Jim Ryan's vision, and I believe he directly influenced Naughty Dog to start real development on it. However, it had always been a shaky project, and development was scaled back, with many developers moved to other projects. At Sony's request, they sent subsidiary Bungie to reassess the game. After evaluating the game, they questioned its ability to maintain player engagement for an extended period, which is what Jim Ryan wanted the most. According to Kotaku, the game was basically on ice by October 2023, following layoffs at Naughty Dog. Around the same time, the news came out that Jim Ryan was getting ousted. Coincidence? Maybe. However, with Jim Ryan's departure, there's now a slim chance this game and similar projects will see the light of day. Jim Ryan has faced criticism from PlayStation fans for various decisions, including increasing the prices of the PS5, raising the prices of PS5 games to $70, and hiking the cost of PlayStation Plus to $80 per year, which is $20 more than before. These price increases have been attributed to greedflation, which is when businesses raise prices higher and faster than is needed to cover increases in their costs, adding more to the global inflation to protect their corporate profits, letting the consumer handle the bills. Furthermore, Jim Ryan faced scrutiny for his handling of Sony's attempt to block Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard and its integration into Xbox game studios, a move that would bring titles like Call of Duty to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. As the FTC's case against Microsoft crumbled, and with the UK on the verge of accepting Microsoft's merger agreement, the deal appeared all but set to go through. And on October 13, 2023, it happened. Microsoft has finalized its $68.7 billion deal to acquire Activision Blizzard, the publisher of notable titles like Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Diablo. The acquisition required 20 months of battles with regulators in the UK and the US, but Microsoft has closed its Activision Blizzard deal after defeating the Federal Trade Commission in a US federal court and restructuring the deal to appease the Competition and Markets Authority, CMA, in the UK. This raised questions about Jim Ryan's decision to step down after serving Sony for 24 years with just 4 years as its president. It led to speculation that he might have been ousted from the company due to a series of controversial decisions. His most notable controversies involved infuriating retro game fans and preservationists when he commented that old PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games looked ancient, like why would anybody play this? On another occasion, while highlighting the company's achievements in Europe and Asia, Ryan made a claim that people had never played games before PlayStation in the Middle East, which was completely false. Then another in 2022, just after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Rather than taking a stance on abortion rights, as some staff had hoped, Ryan chose to write that, "We owe it to each other and to PlayStation's millions of users to respect differences of opinion among everyone in our internal and external communities." This response left many disappointed. With Ryan's departure, there are numerous questions surrounding the future direction of PlayStation. Some insiders express concerns about the company's apparent lack of a clear vision, given its investments in service games, niche VR headsets, and a device called the PlayStation Portal, which allows for remote gaming but only by streaming from your home PS5 via Wi-Fi. This approach makes it seem largely redundant, especially when compared to the functionality of previous handhelds, as it requires owning a PS5. Ryan's departure was followed by the appointment of Hiroki Totoki as the new CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment. Totoki is known for his focus on profitability, which suggests that Sony may be looking to make some changes to its PlayStation business. Only time will tell if this will be for the better or the worse. And now, adding even more to the uncertainty, the Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, also known as SAG-AFTRA members, approved a video game strike authorization vote, potentially impacting the video game industry. Companies that could be affected by this strike included Activision Productions Inc., Electronic Arts Productions Inc., Epic Games, Insomniac Games, Take-Two Productions, WB Games, and Formosa Interactive, many of which contributed to the development of many PlayStation-exclusive games. Despite its controversial journey and leadership shakeups, Sony has a history of innovation. Now they can use the firing of Jim Ryan as an opportunity to revive their brand and regain past success. While the future remains uncertain, one thing's evident: Sony's journey continues. As we watch Sony navigate the challenges of the industry, we are left to wonder if Sony's new CEO and their upcoming console will be the key to salvation, pulling them back from the brink of a potential downfall.